Gregor Johann Mendel became a monk in St. Thomas Abbey, where he built a greenhouse in 1854. He began his experimentation with pea plants, where eventually this led him to co-found the Natural Science Society in Brno, where he lectured about his experiments in plant hybridization. A genotype will place you back in 1854, where you'll start your own experiments with the pea plants and see where the genetics lead you. Before we talk about setup, please note that this is the collector's edition of Genotype, so game pieces might differ from the standard game. Now the setup here is done. Note that the cards in Nursery and Toolshed are dependent on the number of players, and each player will have chosen one pea card to plant on their plot, kept one in hand, and returned the other to the discard pile. Now a game of Genotype is played over 5 rounds, each with 3 phases: the working phase, the plant breeding phase, and the research upgrade phase. Starting with the first, each player will place their action markers on an empty action space and does the action. And then the next player does so, and so on. Now to begin the game, each player starts with 3 of these, but it is possible to get more, meaning some players will repeat this process more than others. Let's take a look at these actions. Gardening will have you manage your garden. First you'll draw 1 pea plant or tool card, then harvest all pea plants that have all their traits covered, and sow a new pea plant card from your hand onto an empty plot. Setting parent genes will modify your chances of getting the required trait by allowing you to put or remove, not flip, a parent gene tile. We'll talk about shifts in phase 2. Just know that for now, when placing an action marker here, you'll garner a coin if there's one right above. Set research goals will allow you to score extra points per type of plant harvested at the end of the game. There's only room for 1 of these, so first come will lock that space for the rest of the game. The treasury allows you to get 2 coins. The university allows you to validate traits on your pea plants in your garden, and the nursery allows you to take 2 cards from the rower deck or 1 from the row deck if in the tool shed space. Now, tool cards provide one-time benefits and are then discarded. These range in effects from drawing more plant cards, validating traits, dice manipulation, cost discounts, and even gaining a research goal for bonus points at the end of the game. Now in phase 2, the plant breeding phase, the players will roll all the dice and place them accordingly on their spot of their color. They'll re-roll all the mutation dice once, place them again in their respective spot, while placing any re-rolled mutation on their spot of their color. Now from top to bottom, the player in the first shifts pick a dice from the color and validates 1 matching trait on their plant. The trait is shown by cross-referencing the parent gene tiles. When all first shifts are done, we move on to the second shift, and those players choose 1 die from any color. Players may also opt in first or second shift to gain a mutation die if present. These gain you 1 coin, or mutate another die of the same color by changing its side to fit your trait, but this requires you filling 2 dice slots. In the last phase, the research upgrade phase, players act in reverse turn order after the first player. Each player will have a chance to buy 1 new plot, dice slot, action marker, or assistant. As soon as the purchase is made, raise the price by 1 by moving the abacus track 1 to the right. Assistants are very similar to tools, but they are permanent, some triggering all the time when the effect happens, or used once per turn as denoted by this icon. And when all players have passed in this third phase, we go to the end of the round. The round tracker goes up, first player marker passes clockwise, decrease cost of each track on the abacus by 1, discarding any remaining plants, tools, or assistant cards, and refilling them, refill the coin in their spaces, and players recover all action markers. Do not remove any parent gene tiles or research markers. Play out all 5 rounds with 1 final harvest phase at the end, which then leads us to the end game scoring. Completed plants score their victory points. Phenotype research goal players add bonuses for each of the matching plants they've completed. Incomplete plants will score 1 point for each completed trait markers, and each coin is worth 1 point. Tally those up, and the player with the most points wins. Now, Bored to Death has seen the beginnings of Genius Games way back when, and with Genotype, they've really shown strides in evolution as a publisher and as returning designers. Their games were always good, but this time I can confidently say that the theme seemed a lot more blended with the game mechanics compared to their previous titles. Their games always involved biology in a fashion and were always very educational to some extent, but prior to Genotype, I felt there was a disconnect between the theme and the mechanics of the game. I'm glad to say I did not feel that at all with Genotype. The game plays smoothly, the iconography is great, rulebook is extremely well written, but the game does have some minor issues. Mainly that I, or any other player, ever struggled to validate traits. There are so many options to do so, from the multiple dice to the tools, assistants, and university, and not to mention the mutation dice, that we hardly bothered with the parent gene tiles. Had we put all minor or major traits, it would not have made a difference. The second inconvenience is that the assistants were lopsided in terms of balance. Mainly it came from some having the ability that's always on. Speaking specifically of Sister Mary, which validates all the same traits as the one you're validating. So someone going to university to validate a trait and has Sister May can possibly get twice, 3 times, or even 4 times the effect. So because of these issues, in a 4-player game, we hardly felt like we were stepping on each other's toes. Besides, in the research upgrade phase, where buying first can really affect the next player's buying power by increasing the prices. And I wish this game had more stepping toes feel to it. Overall, I did enjoy the game, but by removing some of the overpowered cards and even lessening some dice in the dice pool when we house ruled it, it made for a more competitive and more enjoyable game. The game also has a solo mode, which I haven't tried, but the option is there. For me, Genotype scores a 6.5 out of 10. I just wish it had a bit more house rules, and I think this could be a really better game than it already is. Subscribe now to our channel to stay in the loop. If you like our work, help us continue by sharing the channel to your gaming group. Thanks for watching and happy gaming.